Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha, you're watching Perspective. The shares of insurance sector giant LIC made a tepid debut on the stock exchanges on Tuesday, listing at a discount of over 8% from their issue price. The LIC scrip opened at 867 rupees 20 a piece on the BSE, down 8.62% from the issue price of 949 rupees. On the NSE, it opened 8.11% lower at 872 rupees per share. The 21,000 crore rupees blockbuster IPO of LIC had witnessed a good response from the investors, getting subscribed nearly 3 times after a marathon 6-day subscription period from the 4th to the 9th of May. The issue price of LIC was fixed at 949 rupees a piece for allotment to the investors. All policyholders and retail investors got the shares at a price of 889 rupees and 904 rupees a piece respectively, after taking into account the discount offer. The government had offered a discount of 60 rupees per share for the policyholders and 45 rupees a piece for retail investors as well as LIC employees. In Perspective today, we take a look at what led to a weak listing. Was it anticipated owing to the market conditions? And besides that, we'll also try and get an insight from experts on how have some other big IPOs fared on the listing day. For this and much more on the LIC IPO listing, I'm joined by an eminent panel of experts. So let me first introduce them to you. With me in the studio is Mr. Subhash Aggarwal, Chairman and Managing Director, SMC Group. Thank you, sir, for joining us on Sansad TV. And joining us virtually is Mr. Saurabh Chandra, former Secretary, DIPP, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and Mr. Vijay Bhushan, past President, Association of National Exchanges Members of India. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on this edition of Perspective on Sansad TV. Mr. Chandra, allow me to begin the program today with you. So, in terms of subscription, we've seen how the LIC IPO was extremely successful. It saw a subscription of almost 3 times, with the policy holders bidding for 6 times the shares which was reserved for them. But the debut at D Street for LIC has not been great. What, according to you, are some of the factors that could have clouded the listing on D Street for LIC?
Well, the short-term factors are a very choppy market, going up and down. And as I've always maintained, investment in LIC is a long-term play. It is not for speculators. It is for an investor. There is a lot of embedded value in the issue, which is going to surface in the years to come. So the short-term play for speculators depends on emotions, leads to volatility. They come into the market, they go out of the market. So if one was looking for listing gains, this was not an IPO. Market conditions are not the best, but they will stabilize in the future once the Russian-Ukraine war ends, once the crude oil prices stabilize, once the general shortage of commodities, etc., comes down and the sentiments improve. It's all about sentiments at the moment.
Okay, Mr. Bhushan, do you agree that this was something which was anticipated given the volatility in the market? And are there also some other domestic factors that have affected listing on its debut? Mr. Vijay Bhushan?
Well, I think I was a little disappointed with the opening of LIC. We were expecting that it would be lower than the issue price of 949, but did not think it will be around 870. So a little disappointment on how it started. During the course of the day, it had come up to 920. So, but that could not be that could not sustain for long, and again, then most of the time it has been below 900. So, really speaking, the listing gains, as it was already said, uh, were not there for the investor.
Aggarwal, what's your post-listing view? Because ever since LIC IPO was spoken about, that a proposal to go public came through, we've all been discussing about LIC IPO. We've spoken about it on several occasions on Sansad TV as well. There was a lot of excitement around the LIC IPO, considering it was supposed to be the country's biggest. But it's not been the kind of response one would expect. Are you also disappointed as Mr. Vijay Bhushan? Did you expect much better?
First of all, I must say good evening to all my viewers and thank you for inviting me here. Yes, I do agree that little bit disappointment for opening this much lower price. But it's a great opportunity for all the new investors who want to enter in IPO, as this IPO has been subscribed 2.95 times. So many investors have not received the shares. So it's a very good time because the fundamental of LIC is much better. And this current volatility is because of various factors. Global factors, hiking interest rates, foreign outflow, and crude prices, increase in crude prices, inflation, and current volatility and negative sentiment of the market. But these can be improved once the sentiments will little bit improve. It will, because of LIC fundamentals, price will automatically increase. We should not see this issue for the immediate listing gains. For long-term fundamental of LIC is excellent because it is available at 1.1 embedded value, whereas the other peer companies like SDFC, their embedded value multiple is 3.9, and like ICICI 2.8, and many other peer companies are are gaining embedded value on multiples. And at this current price which has closed today, it is lower than one multiple of embedded value EV. So I think that those who cannot get shares, it's a time to invest in the LIC IPO, and I will advise to the existing, even those who has got the allotment, they should not be panic.
Okay, I'll come back and I'll
yes.
try and understand in detail more about the current investors. Those who look forward to invest in future is something that I'll come back and discuss with you. But you mentioned a very important point about market volatility, how several factors are contributing to it. Mr. Vijay Bhushan, do you think it was an inappropriate time to actually open it for public for the IPO listing, considering it was supposed to be the biggest IPO? It had generated a lot of excitement, and perhaps it was postponed. We've seen owing to several factors in the past. It could have waited for some more time. Maybe then the response could have been better. Or do you think it was an appropriate time?
Well, in hindsight, you may say that. But the fact is that I think that the timing was fine. What happens in the market, one doesn't know. And so you have to take a chance. So from a timing perspective, it was not the best time, but I don't think the government is at fault for that. You have to decide on a particular time, and therefore the market may not oblige you at that time.
Mr. Aggarwal, before I go across to Mr. Chandra and discuss the future prospects and how the investors can be reassured, one important aspect of the IPO listing is, and if we look back, there's a sort of precedent. If we look back at the bigger IPOs, it happened with Paytm, it happened with SBI Card, it happened also with GIC. Why has it become a precedent, except a few exceptions, that the listing, it generates a lot of hype, but the debut is not as grand as one would expect? Why is that happening, especially with the bigger IPOs, if we talk about?
Yeah, it is not that a bigger IPO. It may happen that after debuting, prices go down. It can be for any smaller, medium, or bigger IPO. And these Paytm and all that what you have talked, Paytm because still it is more lesser price what has been in opening. So it is a different ball game because new age technology shares are not in profit and they cannot disclose, they cannot say when they will be profitable. But in this LIC IPO, as I told you, its fundamentals are very, very strong. LIC is the biggest asset manager of India. Their market share is around 64%. Their LIC premium, life insurance premium is around 70%. Their group policy premium is more than 80%. They strong brand, reputed company. They are into this business more than 65 years. Their asset is more than the total AUM of the mutual fund. So this is a very big company, and investors should wait for the right timing. It definitely, I will say, it's a good IPO, and price is also reasonable. So considering the timing, I can say it's an opportunity for the new investors. Whenever the share is dipped, I will suggest that they can invest in this IPO.
Okay, okay.
In this
Mr. Chandra, so even though LIC follows other big IPOs with big listing, it has fared better if we compare it to Paytm, also to SBI card. But do you think it's going to manage to buck the trend and emerge as wealth creator for investors in the long run? And how will it do so? How will it reassure the investors?
There is a saying in the market, top line is vanity, bottom line is sanity, and cash in the bank is a reality. If you look at the unicorns and the new age IPOs, you will find that they are cash negative. One should be very wary of investing in any company, at least for a retail investor, which has a negative cash flow. This is not the case with LIC. You have to look at its bottom line. You have to look at what is the kind of cash it is generating. So it can't really be compared with IPOs like Paytm. And since a lot was left on the table in the form of the embedded value, if you were to look at the multiple of embedded value, for ICICI Prudential, it's about 2.5. For HDFC Life, it's about 3.9. So there's a lot of headroom to go up from 1.5, 1.1, which was the value at which shares were allotted, and which has come down actually. That is what the investor should look at. Investment is not a short-term play. It is for the speculators, day traders to look at volatility. You have to look at the long term. You have to look at the fundamentals before you take a decision to invest. That is my point of view.
Okay, Mr. Vijay Bhushan, so what he's implying is it may be a bad start to a great company, but going forth, the journey is not going to be as bumpy. What do you think LIC will have to, or some of the steps that LIC may have to reconsider when it comes to arresting market loss, also reassuring the investors, the current investors, and also those who look to invest in future?
Finally, what do all the institutions look at? The institutions, the investment advisory firms, all of them look at the governance. What listing does is to improve governance. It introduces efficiency, it introduces transparency. You have SEC regulations, you have LODR requirements. So once this kind of transparency comes in, people are confident of the governance, one will find the sentiments improve and the market price go up. So basically what LIC now has to look at is to show to the world that it is following the best governance practices.
Mr. Vijay Bhushan, your opinion on what LIC should do going forward? The LIC chairman, in fact, after the post-listing, said that the insurance behemoth will now try to arrest its market share loss and also ramp up its digital channels, making tactical tweaks on equity investments to please policyholders. Going forth, do you think that's going to be sufficient, or is something else required on part of LIC to hold on to challenges that it faces now in the stock exchange market?
Well, I think uh, LIC taking these steps is good, but ultimately uh, people should uh, know the positives of LIC. As Subhash ji said, this is a great company, and I think people have not yet understood uh, the uh, the worth of the shares. However, I think as time will pass, more will be known about the company. I would just also like to say that SBI card also had this problem initially because market was uh, really very there was a sharp fall, and they also opened at a discount, but the business was good, and therefore then the valuation changed. So I think the same thing will happen. People will look how the company is doing, and very rightly, the corporate governance will be there. And I think once you are listed, then the emphasis on profitability is also there. So I once and quarterly results are announced. So I think further comparison on profitability will also be made between HDFC, ICICI, and LIC. So I think it will take time, but once the quarterly results come in, and I think the market will be able to appreciate what LIC has been doing, and they should also, you see, it's now common to have analysts meet. So that is something they should do, so that there is more information about the company, and that is disseminated to the public.
Okay.
So I think nobody should really be disappointed. It's ultimately your performance, ultimately the way you manage your company, that the stock market appreciates. And of course, the stock market appreciates growth and rewards growth. So I think LIC will have to, come out on performance, especially against HDFC and ICICI, and also ensure that they have information about them is widely disseminated.
Okay, Mr. Aggarwal. So, from a medium-term, long-term perspective, LIC may be a very good option. But for risk-averse, first-time policyholders, and given the sentiment, given the headwinds of LIC on the very first day of listing, do you think that could have a negative impact? And what should the LIC investors now, policyholders now going forth must be doing? What is your suggestion in the short term?
You see, in short term also, considering the strength of LIC, there are 14 lakh individual agents, low cost of procuring commissions, their business model, and considering their network, and considering the premium, persistency of the premium, so renewal premium, I mean to say. So those investors should remain invested, and in dip, while in dip, you should invest more. I will suggest, and the existing shareholders should not panic, and they should hold. They can keep their loss at 800 rupees, though it will not come, it will go up. But for market strategy, they can keep market loss at 800, and otherwise they should hold this share for medium term and even for short term. There is no problem. I think so.
And for those who, missed the LIC IPO initially,
Yeah, they should invest.
And wanting
It's
to
a right
make a
time.
fresh
It's
purchase.
a right time to invest.
And you don't suggest that they should wait for 8 to 10 days, maybe look at some stability factor?
Yeah, you see, I think even in medium term it will go up, and for very short term I cannot say for 1 or 2 days, but I can say for a reasonable period their fundamentals are so strong that price should go up. Generally, what this is my feeling.
Absolutely. So there have been multiple factors which have impacted the listing of LIC at the Dalal Street today, and we've seen the response that it has generated has not been something that one would expect, especially the investors. But for now, what our panelists are suggesting, that in the long run, as far as LIC is concerned, short-term gains is something that one must not only look at. Medium to long-term gains are something that are more important to look at from an investor's point of view. So with that, I'll have to wrap up the discussion. Thank you once again to all three of you gentlemen for joining me on the program today, sharing your thoughts, your perspective with us and our viewers. Several of them, of course, who are also policyholders and investors. Thank you once again for joining us on the program today. So that's it from us on this edition of Perspective Today. Thank you to all our viewers as well for your time. See you again next time. Thank you once again.